Adelaide Monroe stood at the front of the cabin, microphone in hand, her voice steady as steel. Every eye fixed on her. Adriana Whitmore sat frozen in seat 2B, face drained of color, hands trembling. The CEO business card gleamed under the overhead lights. "I own this airline," Adelaide said, her words cutting through the silence like a blade. "And this was your last flight with Sky Elite Airways." Phone cameras captured everything. Adriana's breath came in short gasps. How had it come to this? Before we dive into what led to this jaw-dropping moment, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. If you believe karma is real, smash that like button right now. Hit subscribe because this story will leave you speechless. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Now, let's rewind and see how an ordinary Christmas flight turned into a viral reckoning that changed everything. 4 hours earlier, JFK International Airport buzzed with holiday chaos. December 24th, 6 in the morning. Travelers rushed through Terminal 4 like a river of anxiety and anticipation. LED Christmas lights twinkled from every corner, casting red and green glows across tired faces. Jingle bells played on endless loop through speakers mounted in the ceiling. The check-in line snaked back hundreds of feet, packed with people desperate to reach family before Christmas Day arrived. Adelaide Monroe walked through the terminal with quiet confidence. At 45, she moved like someone who understood exactly who she was. Her charcoal gray Armani suit fit perfectly, tailored to emphasize both professionalism and strength. Natural curls framed her face in soft waves. Chanel sunglasses rested on her nose. The black leather Tumi suitcase rolled smoothly behind her. A Hermes Birkin bag hung from her arm, the kind that required years on a waiting list. Everything about her screamed success, yet she wore it without arrogance. Her phone buzzed constantly. Emails pinged notifications. Text messages lit up the screen. She scrolled through quarterly reports while walking, her other hand pulling her luggage. Despite the elegant exterior, worry lines creased her forehead. Her mother lay in a Dallas hospital, cancer eating away at her strength. Adelaide had promised to be there for Christmas. Nothing would stop her. She paused near gate C42, finding a quiet corner. Her fingers trembled slightly as she dialed. 2 rings. 3. Then a weak voice answered. "Hello, baby." Adelaide's throat tightened. "Hi, Mama. How are you feeling?" "Better now that I hear your voice." "You coming home today?" "I'm at the airport right now. Boarding starts in 30 minutes. I'll be there before lunch." Her mother coughed, the sound rattling through the phone. "You sure? Don't want you rushing if you're busy with work." "Mama, stop. There's nowhere else I'd rather be than with you on Christmas." A pause. Then softly, "I love you so much, Adelaide." "I love you too, Mama. Stay strong. I'm coming." Adelaide ended the call and wiped her eyes quickly. Tears would smudge her makeup. She took 3 deep breaths, centering herself. Her mother had survived so much. Poverty in rural Texas. Racism that tried to break her spirit. Single parenthood after Adelaide's father left. Through it all, she'd raised her daughter to believe she deserved every good thing this world offered. Adelaide had built an empire to prove her mother right. Across the waiting area, another woman sat with very different energy. Adriana Whitmore perched on the edge of her seat like a queen surveying her kingdom. 52 years old, blonde hair chemically lightened to an almost white shade. A white fur coat draped over her shoulders despite the heated terminal. Diamond earrings caught the light with every movement of her head. Louis Vuitton and Gucci shopping bags surrounded her feet like offerings at an altar. Her phone pressed to her ear, her voice carried across the space. "Richard, I cannot believe we have to fly on Christmas Eve. The airport is absolutely packed with, well, you know, all sorts of people. She wrinkled her nose. Yes, I know we're going to Aspen. Yes, I know your mother insists. But still. First class better be perfect or I'm writing a complaint. She hung up and sighed dramatically. Her eyes swept the waiting area and landed on Adelaide. For a long moment, Adriana stared. Her gaze traveled from Adelaide's expensive bag to her designer suit to her confident posture. Something flickered across Adriana's face. Confusion, perhaps. Or irritation. She leaned toward the woman next to her, a stranger who looked equally uncomfortable with the attention. I think that woman is in the wrong section, Adriana whispered, though not quietly enough. First class is usually more exclusive. The other woman shifted away, pretending not to hear. Adelaide noticed the comment. Her jaw tightened imperceptibly. She'd heard variations of that sentence her entire life. Different airports, different restaurants, different country clubs. Always the same message, you don't belong here. She returned to reading the Wall Street Journal on her tablet, refusing to give Adriana the satisfaction of a reaction. 15 minutes crawled by. The gate agent's voice crackled over the intercom. Good morning, everyone. Sky Elite Airways is pleased to begin boarding flight SE-724 to Dallas. We'll start with our first-class passengers and Sky Elite members. Please have your boarding passes ready. Adelaide stood smoothly, collecting her belongings. She walked to the gate agent with her phone already displaying her digital boarding pass. The young woman scanned it and smiled warmly. Welcome aboard, Ms. Monroe. Enjoy your flight. Thank you. Behind her, Adriana rushed forward, her heels clicking sharply on the tile floor. As Adelaide stepped toward the jetway, Adriana's voice rang out. Excuse me. She addressed the gate agent loudly. You should probably check her ticket again. She doesn't look like a first-class passenger to me. Every head turned. The gate agent's smile faltered. Adelaide stopped walking. Slowly, deliberately, she turned around. Her eyes met Adriana's without flinching. No anger showed on her face. Just ice-cold composure. The gate agent stammered, "Ma'am, her ticket is definitely first class." Adriana's lips pressed into a thin line. Well. How surprising. Adelaide said nothing. She simply turned back toward the jetway and walked forward, her posture perfect, her head high. Behind her, she heard the gate agent quietly telling Adriana to proceed. The game had begun. The first-class cabin of the Boeing 787 gleamed with luxury. Only 12 seats total, arranged in a 2-1-2 configuration. Cream leather seats wide enough to sleep in. Personal entertainment screens. Real wood trim along the walls. The scent of fresh coffee and warm bread wafted from the galley. Adelaide reached seat 2A, the window seat on the left side. She placed her Hermes bag in the overhead compartment carefully, then settled into her seat. Her laptop emerged from her carry-on. Work never stopped, even on Christmas Eve. Footsteps approached. Adelaide glanced up. Adriana stood in the aisle, staring at the seat assignment on her boarding pass with visible horror. Her finger pointed at 2B. The middle seat. Right next to Adelaide. No. Adriana said the word like a curse. Absolutely not. She spun toward the back of the plane where flight attendant Aileen Foster was helping another passenger. Excuse me. I need to speak with you immediately. Aileen hurried forward, her expression professionally pleasant. Yes, ma'am. How can I help? I need to change my seat. Adriana's tone left no room for negotiation. I'm so sorry, but we're completely full today. Christmas Eve is our busiest travel day. I don't care if you're full. I cannot sit here. Adriana's eyes cut toward Adelaide, the implication clear without words. Aileen followed her gaze. Understanding dawned on her face, followed by discomfort. "Ma'am, I really don't have any other seats available in first class." "Then upgrade someone from economy and let me take their seat." "I'm afraid our policy doesn't allow downgrades for confirmed first-class passengers." Adriana leaned closer, lowering her voice but not enough. "I am not sitting next to someone like her." The words hung in the air like smoke. Adelaide's fingers paused on her laptop keyboard. She counted to 5 in her head. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory, "Baby, don't let them see you break. Stay calm. Stay dignified. That's when you win." She said nothing. Typed nothing. Simply stared at her screen, though she couldn't read a single word anymore. Eileen's face flushed. "Ma'am, I understand you're uncomfortable, but all passengers have equal right to their assigned seats. I really cannot help you." Adriana's nostrils flared. She threw her fur coat onto seat 2B with theatrical disgust and dropped into the seat like a stone. Immediately, she began shoving her multiple bags into the overhead compartment, deliberately pushing Adelaide's Hermes bag to the side, taking up far more space than necessary. Adelaide looked up. "Excuse me. That's my space. I need room for my things." Adriana didn't even glance at her. "You can put your bag under the seat in front of you. The bag is leather and cost $5,000. I'd prefer not to scuff it on the floor." "Well, I prefer not to have my Louis Vuitton crushed. Guess we can't all get what we want." Behind them, a young Latina woman in seat 3C watched the exchange with wide eyes. Amy Rodriguez, 29, traveling home to see her parents. She'd witnessed the boarding gate incident and now this. Her hands gripped the armrests, knuckles white. Other passengers pretended not to notice, burying themselves in phones and magazines. The classic human response to witnessing injustice. Look away and hope it doesn't touch you. Adriana finally settled after rearranging the overhead space to her satisfaction. She pulled out a crystal bottle of Chanel perfume and sprayed it liberally around her seat. The heavy floral scent filled the immediate area. She fanned her hand dramatically. "The air needs freshening in here." Her voice carried clearly. "Some people just have a certain smell." Adelaide's jaw clenched. Her fingers curled into fists in her lap where Adriana couldn't see. She forced them to relax. "Breathe in. Breathe out. Don't react. That's what they want." Aileen appeared again, pushing the beverage cart. Her smile looked strained. "Good morning, ladies. Can I offer you something to drink before takeoff?" Adriana spoke immediately. "Dom Perignon. And serve me first, please." "Of course." Aileen poured the golden champagne into a crystal flute. "And for you, ma'am." She turned to Adelaide with apologetic eyes. Adriana cut in before Adelaide could speak. "She'll probably just have water. Right?" Adelaide met Eileen's gaze steadily. "I'll have the Dom Perignon as well, thank you." Adriana laughed, a sharp bark of sound. "What a waste of expensive champagne. Do you even know what you're drinking?" Adelaide accepted the flute from Aileen with a gracious nod. She raised it to her lips and took a slow sip, her pinky finger properly positioned, her posture impeccable. Every movement screamed finishing school and etiquette classes. She lowered the glass and turned her face toward the window, effectively dismissing Adriana's existence. The engines rumbled to life. The captain's voice came over the intercom. "Good morning, folks. This is Captain Ainsley Parker. We've been cleared for departure. Flight time to Dallas will be approximately 3 hours and 45 minutes. Weather looks clear. Sit back, relax, and we'll have you on the ground before you know it." As the plane began to taxi, Adriana made her next move. She spread both arms wide, claiming the entire center armrest plus half of Adelaide's armrest. Her elbow jutted into Adelaide's space aggressively. Adelaide gently pushed the elbow back to the center position. That's my armrest. Adriana jerked like she'd been electrocuted. Did you just touch me? You were in my space. How dare you put your hands on me? Adriana's voice rose sharply. Several heads turned. Flight attendant. This woman just assaulted me. The plane stopped its taxi. Footsteps hurried down the aisle. But these weren't the soft-soled shoes of a flight attendant. These were the firm, authoritative steps of someone in command. Captain Ainsley Parker emerged from the cockpit, her uniform crisp and perfect, her dark skin glowing with health, her eyes sharp with intelligence. What seems to be the problem here? Her voice carried natural authority honed over 20 years of flying. Adriana pointed at Adelaide like she was identifying a criminal. This woman attacked me. She grabbed my arm. I want her removed from first class immediately. Actually, I want her off this plane. I paid good money for this seat, not to sit next to someone like. She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Everyone understood exactly what she meant. Captain Ainsley Parker stood in the aisle between seats 2A and 2B, her presence commanding instant attention. At 41, she'd navigated far worse turbulence than an entitled passenger. Her eyes moved from Adriana to Adelaide, reading the situation in seconds. Years of experience had taught her to recognize injustice in all its forms. Ma'am, she addressed Adriana with professional coolness, can you please explain exactly what happened? Adriana's face flushed red. Her words tumbled out in a rush. She assaulted me. Physically grabbed my arm. I was just sitting here minding my own business when she attacked me. I demand she be moved to economy class at minimum. Someone like her doesn't belong in first class anyway. I don't care what her ticket says. The words, someone like her, echoed through the cabin. Passengers stopped pretending to be distracted. Phones stayed down. Magazines closed. Everyone watched. Adelaide spoke for the first time, her voice remarkably calm. Captain, I simply moved Mrs. Whitmore's elbow off my armrest. She was occupying my space. I used minimal force to reclaim what's rightfully mine. That's all that happened. Ainsley nodded slowly. I see. Mrs. Whitmore, is it? Yes. And I want action taken right now. The action I'm taking is telling you to remain calm and respect your fellow passengers. MS. She looked at Adelaide. Monroe. MS. Monroe has as much right to her seat as you do to yours. The armrest situation is simple, you each get one. Share the middle one or don't use it. But there will be no more disruptions on my aircraft. Are we clear? Adriana's mouth fell open. You're taking her side. Of course you are. You're both. She stopped herself, but barely. Amy Rodriguez couldn't stay silent anymore. She unbuckled her seatbelt and stood up, leaning over her seat. Excuse me, Captain. I witnessed everything from boarding. This lady has been harassing Ms. Monroe since we got on the plane. She made racist comments at the gate, pushed her bag out of the overhead bin, and has been making snide remarks non-stop. You stay out of this. Adriana whipped around. This is none of your business. It becomes my business when I watch someone treat another human being like garbage. Amy's voice shook with righteous anger. You should be ashamed of yourself. An elderly white man in seat 4A raised his hand tentatively. Captain, I also witnessed the behavior. The lady in 2B has been quite rude. A middle-aged couple in 5B and 5C nodded vigorously. We saw it too, the wife called out. She's been nothing but hostile. Adriana looked around wildly, suddenly outnumbered. You're all lying. You're all against me because. Because why? Ainsley's voice cut like a knife. Choose your next words very carefully, Mrs. Whitmore. Silence fell. Adriana's chest heaved. Her hands trembled. I know people. Important people. I'm friends with the director of this airline. I'll have you fired. I'll make sure you never fly again. Ainsley's expression didn't change. You're welcome to file any complaint you wish when we land. But right now, you have two choices. Sit quietly and let us complete this flight, or I will have airport security waiting to remove you from the aircraft before we even take off. Your decision. You have 10 seconds. Adriana's face went through several shades of red and purple. She looked at Adelaide with pure hatred, then back at Ainsley. Finally, she collapsed into her seat like a deflated balloon. Fine. Whatever. This is unbelievable. Thank you for your cooperation. Ainsley turned to Adelaide. Ms. Monroe, I apologize for this disruption. Please let any crew member know if you experience any further issues. Adelaide nodded. Thank you, Captain. Ainsley's eyes held Adelaide's for an extra moment. A flash of recognition passed between them. Two black women in positions of authority, dealing with the same tired prejudice in different uniforms. Ainsley gave an almost imperceptible nod of solidarity before returning to the cockpit. The plane resumed its taxi. Within minutes, they were airborne, climbing through the December sky. Adelaide returned her attention to her laptop, though her hands shook slightly as she typed. She willed them to be steady. Years of board meetings and hostile negotiations had taught her to compartmentalize. Feel the emotion later. Survive the moment now. Adriana sat rigid in her seat, arms crossed, radiating fury. She pulled out her phone as soon as they reached cruising altitude. Her thumbs flew across the screen. Adelaide could see her composing something, though she tried not to look directly. 10 minutes of tense silence passed. Then Adriana angled her phone toward Adelaide and pressed the camera button. The shutter sound clicked. Adelaide's head snapped toward her. Did you just take my picture? I'm documenting this. Adriana's voice dripped with self-righteousness. I'm going to post on social media about how Sky Elite Airways allows unqualified people into first class. My followers deserve to know what kind of airline this really is. Delete that photo right now. I'll do what I want. It's a free country. Aileen appeared from nowhere, drawn by the raised voices. Mrs. Whitmore, photographing other passengers without their consent is against FAA regulations and our company policy. I need you to delete that immediately. Oh, so now you're all going to gang up on me? Is that it? Adriana's voice pitched higher. The whole crew is protecting her because you're all the same. Ma'am, this has nothing to do with anything except airline policy. Please delete the photo or I'll have to report this as a federal violation. Adriana stared at Aileen for a long moment, then made a show of tapping her phone. There. Happy. Deleted. But Adelaide saw her thumb move to a different app first. The photo wasn't deleted. Just moved. Adelaide said nothing. What was the point? She'd dealt with people like Adriana her entire life. They never changed. They never learned. They just got better at hiding it or bolder in expressing it, depending on who was watching. The tension in the air felt thick enough to cut with a knife. An hour into the flight, the lunch service began. Aileen and another flight attendant wheeled a cart down the aisle, bringing with them the rich aromas of high-end cuisine. The smell of perfectly seared steak, butter-poached lobster, and truffle-infused risotto filled the cabin. First-class passengers began perking up, setting aside their work and entertainment. Aileen stopped at row 2 with a professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The tension from earlier still lingered. Good afternoon, ladies. Today's lunch options are filet mignon with truffle sauce, Maine lobster tail with drawn butter, or a wild mushroom risotto for our vegetarian guests? What would you prefer? Adriana answered without looking up from her phone. Filet mignon. Medium. And make sure it's actually medium this time. Last flight I took, you people overcooked it. Of course, ma'am. And for you, Ms. Monroe? Adelaide smiled warmly. The lobster tail sounds wonderful. Thank you so much, Aileen. The use of her name made Eileen's expression soften. My pleasure. Within minutes, the meals arrived on elegant china plates with real silverware. Adelaide's lobster tail looked like something from a five-star restaurant, perfectly prepared with lemon wedges and fresh herbs. Adriana's steak was plated beautifully beside roasted vegetables and garlic mashed potatoes. Adelaide picked up her fork and knife, cutting into the tender lobster with practiced ease. Each movement was graceful, controlled. She'd grown up eating beans and rice, but her mother had insisted she learn proper etiquette. You never know where life will take you, her mother had said. Be ready for every table. Adriana watched Adelaide eat for several seconds, searching for something to criticize. Finding nothing, she grew visibly irritated. She leaned across the armrest toward the passenger in 2C, a middle-aged white woman who'd been quietly reading a book. Can you believe how easy it is to make money these days? Adriana's voice carried clearly. Anyone can afford first class now. Even people who don't understand class. Her eyes cut toward Adelaide. People who weren't raised for this level of society. The woman in 2C shifted uncomfortably and turned a page in her book without responding. Adelaide continued eating, her face expressionless. Adriana tried again, louder. I've been flying first class for over 20 years. I've never seen such a diverse crowd. If you know what I mean. Still no response from 2C. Adelaide set down her fork carefully, took a sip of water, and resumed eating. She wouldn't give Adriana the satisfaction of a reaction. Frustrated by the lack of engagement, Adriana addressed Adelaide directly. So, Ms. Monroe, what do you do for a living? I'm just curious how you afford seats like this. Adelaide dabbed her lips with her napkin. I work in aviation. Oh, really? Flight attendant? Adriana's tone dripped with condescension. Or maybe you work at the airport. Baggage handler? TSA agent? Behind them, Amy Rodriguez slammed her hand on her armrest. Okay, that's enough. Mrs. Whitmore, can you please just shut up and eat your food? Some of us are trying to have a peaceful flight. Adriana spun around. How dare you speak to me like that? You have no right. I have every right to call out harassment when I see it. You've done nothing but insult this woman since we boarded. I'm just making conversation. No, you're being racist and cruel, and everybody on this plane can see it. Several passengers pulled out their phones. Red recording lights blinked on. Adriana noticed the cameras and her face went pale, then red again. Turn those off. You can't record me without permission. Actually, we can, called out the man from 4A. We're in a public space. You're being recorded for everyone's safety. I'll sue every single one of you. Adriana's voice reached a shrill pitch. Aileen rushed over, her professional composure cracking. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm giving you a final warning. If you continue disrupting this flight, we will notify law enforcement to meet us at the gate in Dallas. Captain Parker has already been informed of your behavior. This is your last chance. Oh, law enforcement. Are you threatening me? Adriana stood up, her meal forgotten. I'm being victimized here. I'm the one being attacked. First by her. She pointed at Adelaide. And now by all of you. This is discrimination against me. Adelaide finally set down her silverware and looked directly at Adriana. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but clear enough for everyone to hear. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm simply trying to fly home to Dallas to see my mother in the hospital. She has stage 4 cancer. This is likely our last Christmas together. I haven't said one word to you. I haven't bothered you. I just want to get home to my mother. That's all. But you've spent the entire flight attacking me for the color of my skin. The cabin went dead silent. Even Adriana seemed momentarily stunned. Adelaide continued, her voice steady despite the emotion threatening to break through. I've dealt with people like you my entire life. People who decide I don't belong somewhere before they know anything about me. People who see my skin color and make assumptions. But I won't let you or anyone else make me feel less than what I am. I have just as much right to be in this seat as you do. Maybe more, since I don't spend my time making others feel small. Several passengers burst into applause. Amy stood and clapped loudly. Yes. Exactly right. Now, before we see what happens next, let me ask you something. Comment number 1 if you think Adelaide handled this perfectly, or comment number 2 if you would have reacted differently. Smash that like button if you're on Adelaide's side. Hit subscribe because you know this woman's response is going to be explosive. And here's a question for you, have you ever witnessed someone being discriminated against? What did you do? Drop your stories in the comments. Now, let's see how Adriana responds to being called out in front of everyone. Adriana's face turned purple. She pointed a shaking finger at Adelaide. How dare you? How dare you accuse me of racism? I am not racist. I'm simply pointing out facts. I'll sue you for slander. For defamation. You can't say things like that about me. Adelaide remained seated, calm as still water. I didn't call you racist. I said your behavior is racist. There's a difference. One is who you are. The other is what you're doing. Only you know which is true. That's the same thing. Is it? Adriana grabbed her purse, yanking out her phone. I'm calling my lawyer right now. Richard. Richard, pick up. I'm being attacked on an airplane. She paced in the small space, nearly knocking into Aileen. Yes, I'm serious. Some woman is accusing me of horrible things and the entire crew is letting it happen. She paused, listening. Her face changed. What do you mean you're busy? This is an emergency. Richard? Richard. She looked at her phone in disbelief. He hung up on me. Adelaide returned to her lunch, cutting another piece of lobster. She ate slowly, deliberately, as if nothing unusual was happening. The picture of dignity under pressure. Adriana sat down hard, breathing heavily. She looked around at the other passengers, seeing nothing but disapproval. Even the woman in 2C had closed her book and was watching with obvious disdain. Adriana was alone in a cabin full of witnesses to her behavior. She slumped in her seat, defeated for the moment. But her eyes, when they glanced at Adelaide, burned with hatred. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. 30 minutes passed in uneasy silence. Adriana sat rigid in her seat, staring straight ahead, occasionally glancing at Adelaide with barely concealed resentment. Adelaide worked on her laptop, responding to emails and reviewing documents. To any observer, she appeared completely unbothered, though her shoulders carried tension that hadn't been there at the start of the flight. Adelaide's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, Alana Thompson, VP Operations. She answered quietly. Hello, Alana. From her position in 2B, Adriana could hear snippets of the conversation despite Adelaide's lowered voice. Adriana's ears perked up, drawn by curiosity about what this woman actually did for a living. Yes, I'm on flight SE724 right now, Adelaide said, her voice professional. She listened for a moment. No, nothing critical. I'll handle it when I land. Another pause. The Q4 reports look excellent. Make sure we finalize them before the 26th. The board needs everything wrapped up before New Year's. Adriana's eyes narrowed. Q4 reports. Board. This didn't sound like a flight attendant or airport employee. Adelaide continued, Alana, you're the best VP of operations I've ever worked with. Sky Elite wouldn't be where it is without your leadership. She smiled at something Alana said. Yes, 15% growth this year. I couldn't be prouder of our team. We've worked incredibly hard. Adriana's attention sharpened. Sky Elite. That was this airline. This woman worked for Sky Elite. I'll see you at the board meeting next week, Adelaide said. We need to discuss the European expansion timeline. And yes, the new planes are on schedule for delivery in March. Everything's coming together. She laughed softly. Thank you, Alana. Merry Christmas to you and your family too. She ended the call and immediately opened her laptop again. An email notification popped up on her screen, large enough for Adriana to read the subject line from the side, CEO approval needed, Q4 executive bonus distribution. Adriana stared at those words. CEO approval. She must work closely with the CEO. Maybe she was an executive assistant or a department head. Probably got lucky with promotions, Adriana thought. Diversity hires and all that. Adelaide's phone rang again. This time, her professional demeanor melted away. Hi, Mama. Her voice transformed into something soft and vulnerable. Adriana found herself listening despite her determination not to care about this woman's life. I'm about 90 minutes from Dallas. How are you feeling? Adelaide's eyes glistened. Mama, please don't push yourself. Save your strength. I'll be there before you know it. A tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it quickly. I love you so much. More than anything. Just hold on for me, okay? We're going to have Christmas together. I promise. She hung up and pressed her fingers against her eyes, trying to stop more tears. Her shoulders shook slightly. She took several deep breaths, composing herself. When she lowered her hands, her face was professionally neutral again, but her eyes remained red-rimmed. Amy Rodriguez saw this from her seat behind them. Her heart broke for Adelaide. She leaned forward and touched Adelaide's shoulder gently. Are you okay? Adelaide glanced back and nodded. Thank you. I'm fine. Just worried about my mother. I'll be praying for her. I appreciate that. Adriana witnessed this exchange with something that might have been discomfort flickering across her face. But it vanished quickly, replaced by her familiar expression of disdain. She pulled out her own phone and began typing furiously. Adelaide could see her composing an email. She caught glimpses of the text, complaint regarding flight SE-724, unacceptable passenger in first class. Demand full refund and compensation, will never fly Sky Elite again unless changes are made. Adelaide almost laughed. Almost. Instead, she turned her attention back to her own work. Let Adriana write her complaint. It would make for interesting reading in a few hours. The overhead speakers crackled to life. Captain Ainsley Parker's voice filled the cabin. Good afternoon, everyone. We're currently cruising at 39,000 feet over Oklahoma. Weather ahead looks clear. We should have a smooth descent into Dallas. Current time in Dallas is 12:15 p.m., temperature is 38 degrees. We'll be landing in approximately 90 minutes. Flight attendants, please prepare for cabin service. Adriana heard 90 minutes and felt a wave of relief. Soon this nightmare flight would end. She'd get off this plane, file formal complaints with everyone she could think of, and never think about that woman in 2A again. She'd make sure her social media followers heard all about this travesty. Maybe she'd even contact a news station. White woman discriminated against on Christmas flight, that would get attention. She returned to her phone, opening her email app. She navigated to customer service at skyelite.com and began composing a detailed complaint. To whom it may concern, I am a frequent first-class passenger and VIP member of Skyelite Airways. Today, December 24th, I experienced the most appalling service of my life on flight SE 724 from New York to Dallas. Not only was I forced to sit next to an inappropriate passenger who did not belong in first class, but when I rightfully complained, the entire crew turned against me. She typed paragraph after paragraph, crafting her narrative, painting herself as the victim. She described Adelaide as aggressive, inappropriate, threatening. She claimed Adelaide had assaulted her. She demanded a full investigation, termination of Captain Parker and flight attendant Aileen Foster, and substantial financial compensation. Adelaide saw the email over Adriana's shoulder. She saw the lies, the distortions, the complete reversal of reality. She shook her head slightly and returned to her own screen. Aileen approached their row again, this time with a different demeanor. She leaned down close to Adelaide and spoke very quietly. Ms. Monroe, I want to apologize again for everything that's happened today. This is completely unacceptable. I filed a full report with the captain. We take incidents like this very seriously. Adelaide smiled warmly at her. Aileen, you've done nothing wrong. In fact, you and Captain Parker have been wonderful. Please don't worry about me. I'm fine. Still, I'm so sorry. No passenger should have to deal with this. Aileen hesitated, then added even more quietly, especially not you, ma'am. Something in the way she said, you, caught Adriana's attention. Why, especially not you? What was special about this Adelaide Monroe person? Adriana found herself Googling the name before she consciously decided to do so. Her fingers typed, Adelaide Monroe, into the search bar. The results loaded. Her breath caught in her throat. Her face went white. Then red. Then white again. The top result showed a professional headshot of Adelaide in a navy business suit, smiling confidently at the camera. Beneath the photo, Adelaide Monroe, founder and CEO, Skyelite Airways. Adriana's hands began to shake. She scrolled down, desperate to prove this was a different Adelaide Monroe. But article after article confirmed the truth. Forbes, Adelaide Monroe named one of America's most powerful black women in business. Bloomberg. How Skyelite Airways grew from startup to $3 billion valuation under CEO Adelaide Monroe. CNBC interview, Adelaide Monroe on building an airline empire. Adriana clicked on one article with trembling fingers. She read, Monroe founded Skyelite Airways in 2015 with a single leased aircraft and a vision for premium service at competitive prices. 10 years later, she owns 65% of the company, which now operates 147 planes across North America. The phone nearly slipped from Adriana's hands. She grabbed it tighter, reading more. Every article confirmed the same information. Adelaide Monroe wasn't just an employee. She wasn't a department head or executive assistant. She was the founder. The owner. The CEO. The woman Adriana had been insulting and harassing for 2 hours straight. Adriana felt the blood drain from her body. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. She glanced at Adelaide, who was calmly working on her laptop as if nothing unusual was happening. Because to Adelaide, this probably wasn't unusual. She probably dealt with people making assumptions about her constantly. And she just sat there, taking abuse from Adriana, saying nothing about who she really was. Adriana's mind raced. The email she just sent to customer service at skyelite.com. It would go directly to Adelaide's company. Possibly to Adelaide herself. Oh God. The complaint demanded the CEO investigate. The CEO she'd been harassing. The CEO who owned the airline. Adriana felt nauseous. She thought about every word she'd said. Every implication. Every insult. All of it recorded on multiple phones. All of it witnessed by dozens of passengers. All directed at the woman who literally owned the company. She had to fix this. Somehow. Ms. Monroe. Her voice came out as a croak. She cleared her throat. Ms. Monroe. Adelaide looked up, her expression neutral. Yes. I didn't realize. Adriana couldn't finish the sentence. Didn't realize what? That you work for. Still couldn't say it. Adelaide's eyes held no warmth. That I work in aviation. I told you that earlier. No, I mean. I saw. Adriana gestured helplessly at her phone. Saw what, Mrs. Whitmore? That you're the CEO. Of Sky Elite. Ah. Adelaide's expression didn't change. Yes. I am. Adriana waited for more. An explanation. Anger. Something. But Adelaide simply turned back to her laptop and continued working. I'm sorry, Adriana whispered. I didn't know. Adelaide stopped typing. She turned back slowly, her eyes piercing. Would it have mattered if I wasn't the CEO? If I really was a flight attendant or a custodian? Would that have made your behavior acceptable? Adriana opened her mouth. Closed it. No words came. That's what I thought. Adelaide returned to her work. Adriana sat frozen, her mind spiraling into panic about what would happen when they landed. The plane continued its journey toward Dallas while tension in row 2 reached a breaking point. 45 minutes remained until landing. Adriana had consumed 3 glasses of champagne since lunch, and the alcohol was removing whatever filters remained on her behavior. Her face was flushed, her movements slightly uncoordinated. She kept stealing glances at Adelaide, her expression cycling between fear, anger, and confusion. Adelaide continued working steadily on her laptop, reviewing financial projections for the first quarter. Her mother's face kept appearing in her mind, but she pushed the worry aside. Focus on work. Stay busy. Don't think about Adriana Whitmore or the ugliness of this flight. Soon she'd be at the hospital. Soon she'd hold her mother's hand. Soon this would all be over. Adriana suddenly swiveled in her seat to face Adelaide directly. The champagne had given her courage or at least removed her inhibitions. So let me get this straight. You're really the CEO? Adelaide didn't look up. Yes. Of this airline? Sky Elite Airways? That's correct. How? The word came out louder than Adriana intended. Now Adelaide looked up, her eyebrows raised. How? How does someone like you become a CEO? Adriana's words slurred slightly. I mean, what did you actually do? Affirmative action. Diversity hire. Sleep your way to the top. Because there's no way. She didn't finish because the entire cabin erupted. Amy Rodriguez shot to her feet. Are you kidding me right now? Are you actually this stupid? The man in 4A stood up too. Ma'am, you need to stop talking. Immediately. You're embarrassing yourself and all of us. Other passengers joined in, a chorus of disapproval and disgust. Unbelievable. Someone make her stop. I can't believe what I'm hearing. Adriana looked around wildly. What? I'm just asking a question. It's a legitimate question. People want to know how someone from her background ends up running a major corporation. There's nothing wrong with asking. Adelaide closed her laptop slowly and deliberately. She turned to face Adriana fully for the first time since boarding. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but it cut through all the other noise like a blade. "You want to know how I became CEO? I'll tell you. I graduated summa cum laude from MIT with degrees in aerospace engineering and business administration. I worked at Boeing for 6 years, designing aircraft systems. I saved every penny I earned. In 2015, I maxed out my credit cards, took out a second mortgage on my mother's house, and leased one single airplane. I flew routes nobody else wanted. Early morning flights. Red ice. Short regional hops that barely broke even. I cleaned that plane myself between flights. I handled baggage. I worked the ticket counter. I did everything because I couldn't afford to hire help." The cabin had gone completely silent. Everyone was listening. Adelaide continued, "For 3 years, I worked 18-hour days, 7 days a week. I grew my fleet one plane at a time. I treated every customer like royalty. I paid my employees better than any competitor. I invested in safety and training when other airlines cut corners. And slowly, people noticed. Passengers chose Sky Elite because we treated them like human beings. Employees came to work for us because we treated them with respect. Investors put money in because we had a solid business model and a track record of growth." She paused, letting her words sink in. Today, 10 years later, Sky Elite Airways operates in 43 states, employs over 8,000 people, and is valued at $3.2 billion. I own 65% of the company stock. Everything I have, I built myself. Nobody gave me anything. Nobody handed me anything because of my skin color. In fact, people like you stood in my way at every turn. Investors who wouldn't meet with me. Banks that wouldn't give me loans. Suppliers who wouldn't take me seriously. Customers who complained about a black woman CEO and demanded to speak to my boss. I proved them all wrong. Not through affirmative action or sleeping around, but through hard work, intelligence, and refusing to accept people's limitations. Adriana's face had gone from red to white. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. Adelaide wasn't finished. "But here's what really tells me everything I need to know about you, Mrs. Whitmore. You didn't ask me these questions because you were curious about business success. You asked because you fundamentally cannot accept that a black woman could achieve what I've achieved through merit alone. Your worldview requires me to have cheated somehow. Because if I didn't cheat, if I earned everything legitimately, then you have to confront the possibility that you're not actually superior just because of the color of your skin. And that terrifies you." I never said." Adriana's voice was barely a whisper. "You didn't have to say it. You showed it with every action since you sat down. You showed it when you assumed I was in the wrong section. You showed it when you questioned how I could afford first class. You showed it when you suggested I smell bad, when you took up all the overhead space, when you claimed I assaulted you, when you took my photo without permission, when you mocked my career, when you questioned my right to exist in the same space as you." Adelaide's voice remained calm but each word landed like a hammer. "Every single action told me exactly what you think of me and people who look like me." Tears were streaming down Adriana's face now. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean." "Yes, you did. You meant every word and every action. The only thing you're sorry about is that I turned out to be someone with power. If I really had been a flight attendant or a custodian, you wouldn't be apologizing. You'd still think your behavior was justified." Adriana couldn't deny it. The truth of Adelaide's words hung in the air like smoke. Aileen appeared, having heard everything from the galley. "Ms. Monroe, I want you to know that we have documented everything that's happened on this flight. Multiple witness statements. The cockpit voice recorder captured the disturbances. And several passengers have sent their videos to our corporate email address already." Adelaide nodded. "Thank you, Aileen. Adriana's sobs grew louder. Please. Please don't ruin my life over this. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. You can't destroy someone's whole life for one bad day. Adelaide stood up, stepped into the aisle, and looked down at Adriana. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm not ruining your life. You did that yourself. I'm simply ensuring that your actions have consequences. Because people like you have spent centuries facing no consequences. You've said and done things like this over and over, to countless people, and nothing ever happened to you. Well, today something happens. She returned to her seat. Adriana curled into herself, sobbing uncontrollably. Other passengers looked away, uncomfortable with the complete breakdown happening in first class. Captain Ainsley's voice came over the intercom. Flight attendants, prepare for descent. We'll be landing in Dallas in approximately 25 minutes. Adriana sat up suddenly, panic replacing her tears. What's going to happen when we land? Adelaide didn't answer. She was texting someone, her fingers moving quickly across her phone screen. Please, you have to tell me. I have a family. I have a life. You can't. I can't what? Adelaide looked at her coldly. I can't hold you accountable. I can't protect other passengers and employees from being treated the way you treated me. What exactly can't I do? I'll do anything. I'll apologize publicly. I'll donate money. I'll take sensitivity training. Whatever you want. Just please. Mrs. Whitmore, there is nothing you can offer me that I don't already have. I don't need your money. I don't need your apology. What I need is for you to understand that black people, brown people, all people of color, we're not going anywhere. We're going to keep succeeding. We're going to keep rising. We're going to keep taking up space in first class, in boardrooms, in the CEO's office, in positions of power and influence. And people like you are going to have to deal with that reality. Today was your education. An expensive one, but education often is. The plane began its descent. Ears popped as pressure changed. Through the windows, Dallas appeared below them, sprawling and vast in the afternoon sun. Adriana stared at her hands, all fight gone. She'd lost everything in the span of one flight. And somewhere deep down, a small part of her understood that she deserved it. The Boeing 787 descended smoothly through clear December skies. Seatbelt signs illuminated with a soft chime. Flight attendants walked through the cabin one final time, checking tray tables and seat backs. Adelaide fastened her seatbelt calmly, her face turned toward the window. Adriana fumbled with her own belt, hands shaking so badly she could barely click it into place. Passengers around them were quiet, the usual pre-landing chatter subdued by the drama they'd witnessed. Phones remained out, though most had stopped recording. Several people typed furiously, probably posting on social media about the wildest flight of their lives. The story would be everywhere by nightfall. Adriana knew this with sick certainty. Captain Ainsley's voice filled the cabin. Ladies and gentlemen, we're on our final approach to Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. Current temperature is 38 degrees Fahrenheit. Local time is 1:45 p.m. Flight attendants, please prepare for landing. Adelaide received a text message. She glanced at her phone and typed a quick response. Adriana tried to see what it said, but Adelaide angled the screen away. The plane touched down with barely a bump, testament to Ainsley's skill. The reverse thrusters engaged with their familiar roar. They taxied toward the terminal, past other aircraft and service vehicles decorated with Christmas wreaths and lights. Just another holiday arrival. Except for the passengers in first class, this landing felt anything but routine. As they approached the gate, Captain Ainsley made another announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dallas. Before we open the doors, I have a special message. A pause. Today we have the honor of having Sky Elite Airways founder and CEO, Ms. Adelaide Monroe, aboard this flight. Ms. Monroe started this airline 10 years ago with a dream and determination. She built Sky Elite into one of the fastest-growing airlines in America through hard work and dedication to excellence in service. We're privileged to serve her and all of you today. Spontaneous applause broke out throughout the cabin. Passengers craned their necks to see Adelaide. She acknowledged them with a gracious nod and a small wave, her professional smile back in place. Adriana sank lower in her seat, wishing she could disappear through the floor. Every clap felt like a slap. Every cheer felt like condemnation. Ainsley continued, "Ms. Monroe, thank you for flying with us. To all our passengers, thank you for choosing Sky Elite. We know you have many options, and we appreciate your business. Merry Christmas to everyone." The plane came to a complete stop at gate D28. The seatbelt sign turned off. Passengers began standing, reaching for overhead compartments. Adelaide remained seated, checking her phone messages. Aileen approached and bent down close. "Ms. Monroe, there's a team waiting for you at the gate. Security and PR, as you requested. They're ready to proceed however you direct." "Thank you, Aileen. You and your crew handled this situation with remarkable professionalism. I'll make sure that's reflected in your performance reviews." Eileen's face lit up. "That's very kind of you, ma'am. I'm just sorry this happened at all. Not your fault. Sometimes we discover who people really are under pressure. Better to know the truth." Adelaide stood, retrieved her Hermes bag from the overhead bin, and stepped into the aisle. Other passengers smiled at her, some reaching out to shake her hand. An older gentleman said, "You handled that with real class, ma'am. Made us all proud." "Thank you. I appreciate that." Amy Rodriguez had tears in her eyes when Adelaide passed. "You're my hero. Seriously. Thank you for standing up." Adelaide squeezed her shoulder gently. "Thank you for standing with me." As Adelaide moved toward the exit, Adriana remained frozen in her seat. She watched Adelaide walk away, each step taking her closer to whatever waited at that gate. Adriana knew she should get up, should face what was coming, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. A flight attendant appeared. "Ma'am. We need you to deplane now." Adriana stood on shaking legs and pulled her bags from the overhead compartment. She'd somehow aged 10 years during this flight. Her makeup was smeared from crying. Her expensive fur coat looked ridiculous now instead of elegant. She made her way down the aisle, avoiding eye contact with anyone. The jetway felt like a walk to the gallows. Each step brought her closer to consequences she still couldn't fully comprehend. She emerged into the gate area and stopped dead. Adelaide stood near the podium, speaking with a well-dressed black woman who held a tablet and wore an ID badge that read, Alana Thompson, VP Operations. Nearby stood 3 airport security officers. A man in a suit who looked like a lawyer. 2 people with Sky Elite PR badges. And a local news reporter with a cameraman, already setting up equipment. Adelaide saw Adriana and said something to her team. Alana approached with the security officers. "Mrs. Adriana Whitmore?" Alana's voice was crisp and professional. Adriana nodded, unable to speak. "I'm Alana Thompson, Vice President of Operations for Sky Elite Airways. These officers need you to come with them to answer some questions about your conduct on Flight SE-724. Can't I just go home? I'll answer questions tomorrow. I'll write a statement. Whatever you need. But I need to go home now." One of the security officers stepped forward. "Ma'am, we need to complete our investigation before you leave the secure area. It's standard procedure. This shouldn't take more than an hour." "An hour?" Adriana's voice pitched high. "I can't. I need Adelaide walked over, Alana stepping aside to let her through. Mrs. Whitmore, you have a choice. You can cooperate with this investigation, answer questions honestly, and we'll process everything according to standard protocols. Or you can refuse to cooperate, in which case will involve law enforcement and this becomes a federal incident under FAA air rage regulations. Your choice. Adriana looked into Adelaide's eyes, searching for any hint of mercy. She found none. Just cold, professional detachment. I'll cooperate, Adriana whispered. Good. Then please go with these officers. Your bags will be checked for evidence and returned to you before you leave. As security led Adriana away, she looked back once. Adelaide was speaking with the reporter now, her posture confident, her voice carrying clearly. Sky Elite Airways has a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination of any kind, Adelaide was saying. We are committed to ensuring every passenger and employee feels safe and respected. When someone violates that standard, there are consequences. The reporter asked, what consequences is this passenger facing? Mrs. Whitmore is permanently banned from flying on Sky Elite Airways and any of our partner airlines. That's approximately 200 carriers worldwide. We're also filing a report with the Federal Aviation Administration regarding her disruptive behavior, which may result in her being placed on the federal no-fly list. Additionally, we're reviewing potential civil action for harassment and defamation. Some people might say that's harsh for one incident. Adelaide's smile was cold. One incident? This wasn't one incident. This was 2 hours of sustained harassment, discrimination, and attempted intimidation. It was witnessed by dozens of passengers and documented by our crew. And based on Mrs. Whitmore's behavior, I suspect this wasn't her first time treating someone this way. It's just the first time she faced someone who could hold her accountable. What message do you want to send with this action? That discrimination isn't tolerated. Not in my airline. Not by my employees. Not against my passengers. People of color, women, minorities of all kinds, we've been told to sit down, stay quiet, and accept poor treatment for far too long. Those days are over. If you choose to discriminate, there will be consequences. Real ones. Permanent ones. The interview continued, but Adriana could no longer hear it. She was being led into a small office where the questions would begin. Questions she didn't have good answers for. Meanwhile, passengers from Flight SE-724 streamed past, many glancing at Adelaide with admiration. Several approached to thank her or ask for photos. She declined the photos politely, explaining she needed to get to the hospital, but she thanked everyone for their support. Amy Rodriguez stopped on her way past. Ms. Monroe. I just want to say, what you did today matters. My daughter is 8 years old. She's brown like me. She's going to grow up knowing that women like us can be CEOs, can own airlines, can stand up to people who try to make us feel small. Thank you for being that example. Adelaide's professional mask cracked slightly. Thank you. That means more than you know. What's your daughter's name? Isabella. Tell Isabella that she can be anything she wants to be. And if anyone tries to tell her otherwise, she should remember that a black woman built an airline from nothing. If I can do that, she can do anything. They hugged briefly, both women blinking back tears. After Amy left, Adelaide turned to Alana. How's my mother? I called the hospital 20 minutes ago. She's stable. Awake. Asking for you. Then let's finish this quickly. I have somewhere I need to be. In the security office, Adriana sat across from 2 officers and an airline representative, being asked to explain her behavior. She tried to defend herself, tried to claim she'd been provoked, tried to paint herself as the victim. But each time she spoke, the officers' expressions grew harder. They'd seen the video. They'd read the witness statements. They knew exactly what had happened. Outside, as the sun began to sink toward the horizon, Adelaide climbed into a car service vehicle. The driver held the door open respectfully. "To Presbyterian Hospital, Ms. Monroe." "Yes, please. As quickly as possible." As the car pulled away from the airport, Adelaide finally allowed herself to relax slightly. She closed her eyes and let out a long breath. Her phone buzzed. A text from Alana: "Video already has 10 million views online. CNN wants an interview. So does Good Morning America. What should I tell them?" Adelaide typed back, "Tell them I'm unavailable until after Christmas. I'm with my mother. Nothing is more important than that." She put her phone on silent and looked out the window at Dallas passing by. In a few hours, this would be the biggest story on social media. By tomorrow, it would be national news. People would debate it, dissect it, have strong opinions about whether she'd been too harsh or not harsh enough. But right now, none of that mattered. Right now, she needed to get to her mother. Adelaide walked through the sterile corridors of Presbyterian Hospital with purposeful steps, though inside she felt like the scared little girl who used to hold her mother's hand crossing busy streets. The elevator took forever. Finally, 4th floor. Room 412. She pushed open the door gently. Her mother lay in the hospital bed, looking impossibly small under the white sheets. At 72, cancer had stolen her weight and vitality, but not her spirit. When she saw Adelaide, her face lit up with a smile that made every hardship of the day worthwhile. "Baby girl. You made it." Adelaide crossed the room in 3 strides and wrapped her arms around her mother carefully, mindful of all the tubes and wires. "Of course I made it, Mama. I promised. How was your flight?" Adelaide laughed, a sound somewhere between humor and hysteria. "It was educational." "Somebody give you trouble?" "How'd you know?" Her mother stroked Adelaide's hair with a shaking hand. "Because trouble always finds strong black women. That's how it's always been." "Did you handle it?" "Yes, Mama. I handled it." "Good. That's my girl. I raised you to stand tall. Never let them make you small." They held each other for a long moment. Outside the window, Dallas sparkled with Christmas lights. Inside this room, surrounded by beeping monitors and antiseptic smells, Adelaide finally felt at peace. "Mama, you remember when I was 8 and that teacher said I'd never amount to anything? That I should focus on being realistic?" Her mother chuckled weakly. "Mrs. Henderson. Nasty woman. I went up to that school and told her exactly where she could put her low expectations." "You did. And you told me something that day I've never forgotten." "What did I say?" "You said, 'Baby, the world's going to tell you no 1,000 times. But you only need to say yes to yourself once. You build your own table if they won't give you a seat at theirs.'" Her mother nodded. "I remember. And look at you now. You didn't just get a seat at the table. You built the whole restaurant." Adelaide smiled through tears. "I built an airline, Mama. And today, someone tried to tell me I didn't belong in first class on my own plane. What did you do?" "I reminded her who signs the paychecks." Her mother laughed, which turned into coughing. Adelaide held a cup of water to her lips. When the coughing subsided, her mother said, "That's my daughter. Never forget your power. Use it wisely. Use it for good. But never forget you have it." They spent the evening together, watching old Christmas movies, sharing hospital food that Adelaide made special by being there. Nurses came and went. Visitors from the church stopped by briefly. But mostly, it was just the two of them, making Christmas memories in the glow of a hospital television. 1 week later, Adelaide stood at a podium in Sky Elite Airways corporate headquarters, facing a room packed with journalists. Cameras lined the back wall. Microphones covered the podium like mushrooms after rain. Alana stood to her right. The company's legal counsel stood to her left. Adelaide had chosen a navy suit and a string of pearls. Professional but approachable. Powerful but not intimidating. She knew how the game was played. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm going to make a brief statement, then I'll take a few questions." She looked directly into the cameras. "Last week, one of our passengers engaged in sustained harassment and discrimination against me during Flight SE 724 from New York to Dallas. The incident was witnessed by numerous passengers and documented by our crew. Since then, video of parts of the incident has been viewed over 50 million times on social media." She paused, letting that number sink in. Sky Elite Airways has a clear policy regarding discrimination and harassment. We do not tolerate it from passengers, and we do not tolerate it from employees. The passenger in question, Mrs. Adriana Whitmore, has been permanently banned from flying Sky Elite and all partner airlines. We have filed reports with the FAA, which is conducting its own investigation. Mrs. Whitmore is likely to be placed on the federal no-fly list. A journalist raised his hand, but Adelaide continued, "Additionally, I'm announcing today a new company-wide initiative called Equality in the Air. This program will include mandatory anti-discrimination training for all employees, a passenger bill of rights that explicitly protects against discrimination, and a rapid response team to handle any incidents immediately. We're investing $5 million in the first year of this program." Another pause. "I want to be clear about why we're taking such strong action. This isn't about revenge against one passenger. This is about sending a message that discrimination in any form is unacceptable. For too long, people of color, women, LGBTQ individuals, people with disabilities, they've all been told to just accept poor treatment. To stay quiet. To not make waves. That era is over." She gripped the podium edges. "I built this company from nothing. I faced discrimination at every step. Banks that wouldn't lend to me. Investors who wouldn't take me seriously. Suppliers who questioned my competence. Customers who demanded to speak to my boss when I was the boss. I succeeded despite all of that. But I shouldn't have had to fight those battles. Nobody should." Her voice grew stronger. "So yes, we're making an example of Mrs. Whitmore. Because actions have consequences. And people who choose to discriminate need to know that those consequences are real and permanent. We will not look the other way. We will not make excuses. We will hold people accountable." The journalists erupted with questions. Adelaide pointed to a woman in the front row. "Ms. Monroe, some people online are saying your response was too harsh. That everyone deserves a second chance. What's your response?" Adelaide's expression didn't change. Mrs. Whitmore had hundreds of chances to change her behavior during that flight. She could have stopped at any moment. Instead, she escalated repeatedly. Second chances are for people who make mistakes and learn from them. Mrs. Whitmore made deliberate choices for over 2 hours. Those weren't mistakes. That was who she chose to be. Another journalist: "What happened to Mrs. Whitmore after the flight?" She was interviewed by airport security and airline representatives. She's facing potential civil penalties and the federal investigation I mentioned. Beyond that, I can't comment on specifics. Have you spoken to her since landing? No. I have no interest in speaking with her. She's given several interviews claiming she's been destroyed unfairly. That her life is ruined. Adelaide's jaw tightened. Mrs. Whitmore ruined her own life by choosing hatred over humanity. I simply ensured there were consequences for that choice. If she's suffering now, she brought that suffering on herself. The questions continued for 20 more minutes. Adelaide handled each one with practiced ease. Finally, Alana stepped forward. That's all the time we have. Thank you all for coming. Written statements will be available on our website within the hour. As the room cleared, a young black reporter approached Adelaide. "Ms. Monroe. Off the record, can I ask you something?" "Of course. How does it feel? Getting justice like this?" Adelaide considered the question carefully. "Honestly? It feels bittersweet. Yes, there's satisfaction in holding someone accountable. But there's also sadness that it was necessary. I wish I lived in a world where this kind of incident never happened. Where people treated each other with basic respect regardless of race or background. But we don't live in that world yet. So when we get opportunities like this to push back against discrimination, we have to take them. For ourselves. For our children. For everyone who comes after us." The reporter nodded. "Thank you. You're an inspiration. I'm just someone who got tired of accepting the unacceptable. Anyone can do that." Meanwhile, across Dallas, Adriana Whitmore sat in her darkened living room, watching Adelaide's press conference on television. Her life had indeed been destroyed. Her husband had filed for divorce, citing the public embarrassment. Her country club had revoked her membership. Friends had stopped answering her calls. Her face had become synonymous with racism online. Job opportunities had evaporated. She'd been forced to delete all her social media accounts due to the flood of angry messages. She'd given tearful interviews trying to explain herself, but each one only made things worse. Every apology sounded hollow. Every excuse revealed more of her true character. The court of public opinion had convicted her, and there would be no appeal. 1 month after the flight, Adelaide received a letter forwarded from Sky Elite's corporate office. She recognized Adriana's name on the return address. For a long moment, she considered throwing it away unopened. But curiosity won. The letter was handwritten, 5 pages long. Adelaide skimmed the opening paragraphs of apologies and excuses. Then a section caught her eye. "I've spent the last month losing everything. My marriage. My social standing. My sense of self. And through all of it, I kept thinking you were the villain of this story. You were the one who ruined my life. But today, something changed. I was watching the news and they showed a story about a black teenager who was shot by police for looking suspicious in his own neighborhood. And I realized, that could have been you once. That could have been any black person just trying to exist. And people like me, with our assumptions and our prejudices, we create the environment where those shootings happen. Where people get harassed on planes. Where qualified people get passed over for jobs. Where everyone doesn't get treated with basic human dignity. I'm not the victim here. I never was. I was the perpetrator of a violence that's existed for centuries. I'm so deeply sorry." Adelaide read the words twice. She sat at her desk for a long time, thinking. Finally, she folded the letter and placed it in her drawer. She didn't respond. But she kept it. Some journeys toward redemption had to be walked alone. Christmas evening, 1 year later. Adelaide Monroe sat in her mother's living room, both women healthy and whole. The cancer had gone into remission through a combination of aggressive treatment and sheer stubborn will. The house smelled of sweet potato pie and honey-baked ham. Christmas music played softly from speakers. Wrapped presents sat under a tree decorated with ornaments collected over decades. Adelaide's mother looked at her daughter over the rim of her coffee cup. "You thinking about last Christmas?" "How'd you know?" "Because you've been quiet all evening. That's your thinking face." Adelaide smiled. "Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Hard to believe it's been a year. That woman ever reach out again?" "No. Just the one letter. I think she finally understood that I'm not interested in her apology or her redemption journey. That's her work to do, not mine." "You think people can change?" Adelaide considered the question seriously. "I think people can change. I've seen it happen. But change requires work. Real work. Not just saying sorry when you get caught. It means examining your beliefs, confronting your biases, making different choices over and over until they become natural. Most people aren't willing to do that work. You've done a lot of good this year, baby. That equality program you started. The scholarships. The mentorship for young women of color in business. You turned something ugly into something beautiful. I had to. If I just got angry and moved on, then nothing changes. But if I use my platform, my resources, my voice to create real change, then maybe that horrible flight meant something. Her mother raised her cup in a toast. To meaning something. To making a difference. To my daughter who doesn't just break glass ceilings, she builds new buildings without them. They clinked cups and drank. Later that night, Adelaide checked her phone and saw an email from Alana. The subject line read, "Year-end numbers are incredible." She opened it and smiled. Sky Elite Airways had grown another 20%. They'd added new routes to Europe. Customer satisfaction ratings had reached all-time highs. Employee retention was the best in the industry. The Equality in the Air program had handled 47 incidents of potential discrimination, resolving most with education and only banning 3 passengers who refused to modify their behavior. But more than the numbers, Adelaide was proud of the culture they'd built. Sky Elite had become known as the airline where everyone was welcome. Where diversity wasn't just tolerated but celebrated. Where flight attendants felt empowered to stand up for passengers facing harassment. Where people of all backgrounds could sit in first class without anyone questioning their right to be there. The video from that Christmas Eve flight still circulated periodically, going viral again whenever discussions about discrimination and accountability resurfaced online. Adelaide had been interviewed by every major news outlet. She'd spoken at conferences and universities. She'd become an unwilling but effective spokesperson for standing up against racism. She received messages daily from people who'd experienced similar situations. Black professionals told they didn't look like executives. Latina mothers questioned about being in upscale stores. Asian entrepreneurs assumed to be employees rather than owners. Their stories broke her heart and steeled her resolve. On New Year's Eve, Adelaide stood in Times Square at a special event hosted by a major network. They were counting down the year's most impactful moments, and someone had decided Adelaide's confrontation with Adriana deserved recognition. She'd initially declined the invitation, uncomfortable with the celebrity aspect. But Alana had convinced her that her presence mattered. As the countdown approached, the host interviewed Adelaide one more time. "Ms. Monroe, looking back at that flight, is there anything you'd do differently?" Adelaide thought carefully. "Honestly? No. I handled it with dignity. I didn't stoop to her level. I didn't respond with anger or aggression. I simply refused to accept treatment I didn't deserve. And when I had the power to hold her accountable, I did. That's all any of us can do. Stand firm in our worth. Refuse to be diminished. And when we have power, use it to protect others who might not have the same ability to protect themselves." What do you want people to remember about this story? That your assumptions about people based on their appearance are probably wrong. That everyone you meet has a story you don't know. That kindness costs nothing but means everything. And that if you choose hatred and discrimination, there are consequences. Real ones. Permanent ones. The crowd erupted in applause. As midnight approached and the ball began to drop, Adelaide found herself thinking about Adriana. She wondered where the woman was tonight. If she'd learned anything. If she'd changed at all. Adelaide would probably never know. But that wasn't her responsibility. Her responsibility was to keep building, keep growing, keep proving that people like her belonged everywhere. In boardrooms. In first class. At the top. And to make sure that the next generation of black girls, brown girls, girls of all backgrounds, never had to fight as hard as she had to claim their space in the world. As the crowd counted down, 10, 9, 8. Adelaide smiled. She'd turned her worst flight into a platform for change. She'd used her voice when silence would have been easier. She'd held someone accountable when letting it go would have been simpler. 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. Fireworks exploded over Times Square. Confetti rained down. Adelaide raised her glass of champagne to the sky, a silent toast to her mother, to everyone who'd stood with her on that flight, and to everyone still fighting their own battles against discrimination. The new year had arrived. And she'd made sure it was a little more just than the last one. Now, I want to hear from all of you. Comment below if you think Adelaide handled this situation with grace and strength. Hit that like button if you believe racism and discrimination should always have consequences. Subscribe to this channel because stories like this need to be told and shared. And most importantly, share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Have you ever stood up against injustice? Have you ever witnessed discrimination and wondered if you should speak up? Drop your stories in the comments. Let's build a community of people committed to treating everyone with dignity and respect. Thank you for watching this story. Thank you for caring about justice and equality. And remember, you belong wherever you choose to be. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Stay strong. Stay proud. Stay true to yourself. Happy holidays to all of you, and may the new year bring you everything you've worked so hard to achieve. Until next time, keep standing up, keep speaking out, and keep believing that change is possible. This story teaches us profound truths about dignity, accountability, and justice. First, never judge someone's worth by their appearance. Adelaide Monroe faced assumptions based solely on her skin color, yet she owned the very airline questioning her presence. Prejudice blinds us to reality and costs us opportunities for genuine human connection. Second, silence enables discrimination. The passengers who spoke up, Amy Rodriguez and others, demonstrated that bystanders have power. When we witness injustice and say nothing, we become complicit. Speaking up requires courage, but it's essential for change. Third, consequences matter. Adriana Whitmore faced real repercussions for her behavior because Adelaide had the power to enforce accountability. For too long, discriminatory actions went unpunished, teaching perpetrators they could act without consequence. This story shows that times are changing. Fourth, success is the best response to those who doubt you. Adelaide didn't argue or defend herself initially. She simply existed in her excellence, letting her achievements speak louder than any words could. When the truth emerged, it was devastating to those who'd underestimated her. Finally, use your platform for good. Adelaide transformed a painful experience into systemic change through her Equality in the Air program. When we face injustice, we can choose to create something better from it. Personal pain can become collective progress when we channel it toward meaningful action. True power isn't just achieving success, it's lifting others as you climb. What would you have done in Adelaide's position? Would you have stayed calm or confronted Adriana immediately? Drop a comment below with your honest answer. I want to hear your thoughts. If you believe discrimination should always have consequences, smash that like button right now. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications because we share powerful stories like this every week that need to be heard. Here's my question for you: have you ever witnessed someone being treated unfairly because of their race, gender, or background? What did you do? Share your story in the comments. Your experience might inspire someone else to stand up next time. And please, share this video with your friends and family. These conversations are how we create change. Thank you for watching and for being part of a community that believes in justice, equality, and human dignity. Remember, you have the power to make a difference every single day through your choices, your voice, and your actions. May you always stand firm in your worth and never let anyone diminish your light. Until next time, stay strong, stay kind, and keep fighting for what's right. Happy holidays and God bless.